Pleasure to be here in Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and Student Legislative Council. I think you people have organized this session at the right time. In fact, I've been lecturing around this GST and advising the government and speaking to the industry people in the past, not less than at least 9 months, vigorously. But I've been speaking about the subject for the past 3 years. And basically, I'm a chartered accountant. Now I'm into the policy making with the government also, because the government has taken me into the consideration because I know the ground reality. Today in the policy making in the government, the most important thing that is missing is the ground reality. And the data which is in the government also need to be improved. And why I'm making this statement before even I open up the discussion on GST is, if you feel that the GST is a godfather for changing the Indian economy, please take out that notion. It is one of the reforms that we are expected to have in the country, and which is going to actually change the face of the Indian economy. In my experience with the interaction with the industry people, I've lectured GST at Malaysia, I've spoken about GST at Nepal, I've spoken in various industry clusters in India, I've interacted with the top companies to the SME, MSME segment. So I'll bring everything to you and then tell you whether GST is going to actually transform the nation, how it is very, very important for you to understand, because being from IIT, you people are going to be the India's intellectual club, and with your innovations and your knowledge, you are going to transform India. You need to understand the GST in full. Before I get into the GST, first let's understand that India is in a transformational phase. Now, if you look at the law, the indirect tax law, basically in India there are two types of taxes. One is the direct tax, other is the indirect tax. And both of the laws, that is income direct tax laws as well as the indirect tax laws, are governed under the Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance has two departments. One is the Department of Economic Affairs and the Department of Financial Services. And this tax, the direct tax, is a tax on your income. Don't think I'm teaching from the basic. I'll take you through that and then take you to the advanced levels of the GST. This direct tax is on your income tax. If you are aware, the wealth tax has been abolished in India. No more wealth tax. Some of the universities in India still have wealth tax in their syllabus. I kindly request the universities to take it out, because the act itself is repealed. When the act itself is repealed, still it is there part of the syllabus. That is a condition of the education system in the country today. And second, your direct tax as only income tax, and second, under indirect taxes, we had excise duty, we had service tax, we had octroi, VAT, and then you had your service tax, and then you had your customs duty. All these are indirect taxes. So this excise duty was brought in India even before independence. This law is still relevant. Don't think the GST has come and excise duty is not applicable. Excise duty is applicable on certain products still, certain items still. So this excise duty was brought in the country in before independence, 1944, in that period, and it continued. If you remember well, our entire freedom movement was because of excise duty. The Dandi March was started because the Britishers levied excise duty on the salt, and that's how Gandhiji took that as a point for the purpose of Indian freedom movement, which got vigorously, and subsequently we got the independence. And this excise duty was levied on manufacture. Then service tax was brought in the year 1994. For information, service tax is not an act. It was brought as part of the Finance Act 1994. It was Mr. P. Chidambaram who conceptualized this idea. He went around the Europe and found that there was a methodology to tax the services. Then he thought, why can't we bring this service tax to India so that the revenue base can be increased in the country? And with that vision, Mr. P. Chidambaram bought this service tax, and service tax was brought in the country in the mindset of temporary nature, for information, and it got sustained in the country. It was initially levied for three services. One important services on which the service tax was levied was on the brokerage and air freight. That is how the service tax started. In 2008-9, it went up to 108 services. Then government thought, why should we have the services which has to be taxed let's bring negative list. When I say negative list, whichever appears in the negative list, no service tax. Other than those negative list items will be levied service tax. That's the government's idea. They brought this because primarily to introduce GST. Hope you got the point. The fundamental thing. Then subsequently you have octroi. Then you have your state levied VAT, value added tax. And other than this, you have your customs duty. You may think that the customs duty is only one single tax. No. Under the customs duty, you have your basic customs duty. And then you had your the CVD, countervailing duty, special additional duty, that is called SAT. Other than the basic customs duty, there are certain components which are also levied on the import of the product. Water. It's also levied on the import of the products. So this is the profile of our indirect tax system, and you might think that what is wrong in it? That's fundamental question everybody thinks about the indirect tax structure. Basically, this multiplicity of taxes caused difficulty of doing business in India. Let me give you one example. The Supreme Court of India, many of them would be doing computer science, software engineering and all those things. Supreme Court of India said, we don't know whether software is a product or a service. It told the revenue authorities that if software is considered as a product, don't levy service tax, just levy VAT. If you consider software as a service, levy service tax, don't levy VAT. But what did the revenue authorities did? They levied both. And who are all these IT companies? You all must be aware. These IT companies came from US. These IT companies came from different parts of the world. They established shops here, provided employment to us. And now these guys are put for confusion. Is there anything wrong with them? No. They just produce softwares or rendered service of software. But Indian government is not sure whether software is a service or product. Supreme Court said, we are not sure whether software is a service or a product, but if you levy service tax, do not levy VAT on the software. If you levy VAT, do not levy service tax. What did the revenue authorities did? They levied both. This is called harassment. This is called difficulty of doing business in India. And India today is raised up to the level of ease of doing business. I'll tell you the reason why India has actually raised up to the ease of doing business. 100th rank. We were in 4 years before, we were in 189th rank. We were under out of 189 countries, we were under the 148th rank, if I'm not wrong. Then we slashed to 130th rank. Now we are in 100th rank. And that means there are certain steps that the government has taken on the ground level in either bringing reforms in the laws that has made India to reach the 100th level. Now, let me begin this. In 1998, it was Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. He wanted to actually bring GST to India. And it was the time, I fairly remember, he spoke about this GST, sent some expert people to other parts of the world, then try to understand what could be the best suitable taxation reform which can replace the multiplicity of taxes. Then he found and said it is the GST law, and accordingly GST has to be brought in India. That's the time he decided. But it took almost 20 years in our country to bring the GST. What is complicated so much into the GST that it took 20 years? You should understand, in India, simplest thing is also complicated. If you check the reason, it will be politics. It will be politics. A simplest thing will come into the limelight. A simplest thing will be complicated. Complicated thing is always complicated. Because of politics, it never becomes complicated thing to simplified. But a simplified thing will become complicated. And GST is not an exception. You may think, what is there in GST, sir? There are some indirect taxes, multiple indirect taxes, which is going to replace by GST. What is the problem? The problem is who will get the name if they bring the GST. If Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji brings GST, then he will get the name. If Manmohan Singh ji brings the GST, he will get the name. Now, this is the confusion in India which led 20 years for the country to bring the GST. Now, you might think, sir, what could have happened if the GST was brought in 1998? By this time, India would be a developed nation. What is my development? I'm coining the development from the economic point of view, from per capita income point of view, from the development of infrastructure point of view. More revenue to the government, more will be the spend. That is the rational thinking, right? But more revenue to the government, corruption also happens. That is an irrational thinking, right? So whatever it is, going by the rational thinking, if the government would have brought the GST in 1998, by this time the revenue to the government would have increased, and India would be a developed nation, is what some people who are talking about the GST they say. But however, I would say the right time to bring the GST is right now, because there are two reasons why GST is limelight today. It is because of the people of India, because people voted for the majority government, and when the people voted for the majority government, to bring the GST in the country, it required constitution amendment. To amend the constitution, you need 2/3 voting power, 2/3 people approving the Lok Sabha, 2/3 people approving the Rajya Sabha, and 50% of the state assemblies also should approve. Let's assume you did not have a majority government. What would have happened? First of all, it will not go through Lok Sabha, then it rarely go through Rajya Sabha, and state assemblies also will not support. I hope you got the point. Be it any party. Now it's a unique opportunity which came in the way of the present government. In 2014, we got the majority government, and they got a unique opportunity, and they took steps also to bring it. That's also very important. And they tried. In Lok Sabha, they had a majority, they did not have a problem. But in Rajya Sabha, it was stuck. Let's assume if they had a majority in the Rajya Sabha, they had a majority in the Lok Sabha, let's assume they had a majority in the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha is an equation of the state assemblies. Hope you got the point. If you have more states, there is a central government. If they had more states ruling in the state level, more chief ministers from the ruling government, then they will be nominated to Rajya Sabha, and in Rajya Sabha also they would have got the they would have gone through the Rajya Sabha also. But somewhere down the line, the central government was the one party was ruling, and multiple parties were ruling in the state government, and because of that, in Rajya Sabha it was stuck. When it was stuck in Rajya Sabha, nothing wrong. Any law or anything should go through the criticism, and constructive criticism we should appreciate. Sometimes you know about the criticism. People talk about Gabbar Singh tax. People talk about compare that with some low-level thoughts. I don't think it is required for GST. And always when the people oppose this, anybody for that matter, one question that we need to ask is, if this is not the method, what is your method? What is your method? When they talk about wrong implementation, you should immediately question the person who is speaking. If this is not the method, what is their next idea? I can bet you in all the television channels wherever I appeared, I appear for the debates. When I ask this question, there is a break. There is a break because nobody knows what is the next idea. As an educated youth today, when you think about GST, I am asking you, I am humbly requesting you people to think about the next idea. Think about what is the next solution available if this is not the way to be implemented. Let me tell you, this is the way it can be implemented in India. There is no other way. There is no other way. I can put it across. You can come out with multiple ideas. I will explain you the GST. You are all IIT products. You can come out with the innovation right to the Prime Minister tomorrow. If possible, this is the way that we need to bring the GST. And he will do it. That's what I'm assuring. Because everybody has brainstormed. There are a lot of hours which has gone into it. For information, even the parties, one is ruling party which got it. It is just not the ruling party. Even the opposition party is there in GST Council. Please understand. GST Council is the first federal institution which the government has set up to implement the GST. In the GST Council, 2/3 voting power is for the state finance ministers, and 1/3 voting power is for the union finance minister. Only when both of them actually give any approval in 3/4 approval, then the particular changes or particular things are brought in under the GST Council. When this is the fundamental thing, you can't blame the government. Let's take a look at it. This GST Constitution Amendment Bill came to limelight. Three important opposition point was raised by the opposition party to the ruling party. They said it is fairly right also when it was being passed. They said fix the rate at 18% in the constitution itself. Second, you need to establish, they proposed to the government, the opposition party proposed to the government, please establish dispute resolution panel, GST dispute resolution panel. The third point of opposition raised by the opposition party to the ruling party was, please compensate all the state government 100%. Because it was earlier 100%, 75% and 20%, all those slabs were discussed. But they said nothing doing, whichever states lose revenue because of GST, compensate those states with 100% compensation through a compensation bill. Generally, who will lose revenue under the GST? It's expected that manufacturing states will lose the revenue. How many manufacturing states are there in India? Only 3 manufacturing states are there in India, according to me. 1 is Tamil Nadu, 2 is Maharashtra, 3 is Gujarat. These are the 3 primary manufacturing states in India. Apart from these states, all other states are either consuming states or primarily service oriented or micro enterprises are thriving. That's all. And looking at these 3 states, when the government, the opposition party raised this valid point and ruling party also accepted, said we will compensate 100% to the state government, no problem. The revenue loss which comes because of GST implementation, we will compensate 100%. Second, they also agreed for GST dispute resolution panel. The third point which they will never accept, even if the same people who are opposing now, if they are in the ruling and the ruling goes and opposes saying that fix the rate at 18%, it is not acceptable in India, because if you fix 18%, it will become regressive in India. It will become a regressive rate of tax. Why? Your baby powder will be taxed at 18%, your BMW will be taxed at 18%. This is not the rate which can be fixed for India. Today, people are forgetting when they talk about 28%. There is a rate called 5%. There is a rate called 5% where majority of products are there. And my lookout, rather anybody's lookout in this country should be, what is the rate that is affecting the majority? That's all. That's how the country can do, that's how the country can frame the policy. When you look at the products, majority of the products are either not exempt. If you take the consumer price index, check, nearly about 65% to 70% of the products are not even coming under the GST. Hope you got the point. GST is not levied on 60 to 70% of the product under the consumer price index. Balance 40% of the products are brought under 5% category, 12% category, 18% category and 28% category. And you go and check in the 28% category, you or me, if you are not in Chennai, or if you don't think about, if you think about your necessity, basic necessity, think about your basic necessity and think about the life of the common man, then integrate it and think your outflow of the GST will not be there, that much. And second thing, if you think that the government has done mistake in bringing the rates, high rates of taxes for the necessities, it is the policy framing body, which is the GST Council. Who sits in the GST Council? The state finance minister sits and the union finance minister sits. Then who is responsible for the GST? It is Team India. When I say Team India, it is all the states plus union territory plus union government. That is called Team India. So nobody can be blamed or nobody can be given the credit. Hope you got the point. Hope you got the point. So looking at this, is the policy making, the ground reality should be informed to the government. Let me go through the ground reality. That's where I opened up saying government does not know the ground reality. Because bureaucrats sit at Delhi, they become IAS officers, they will bring the policies as part of the cost benefit analysis. By bringing the law, what is the revenue that the government will bring, and overall basis they will take the Excel sheet, existing tax rate, and they will put the new tax rate, and they will minus the cascading effect, they will bring the tax rate. They will not go and check each item and then say this has to be at 28%. There are numerous products in the country, and we got the GST in hurry-burry only. In India, if you wait, you cannot bring anything. So it is better to bring something in a hurry-burry than waiting for the day to bring it. And let me talk about the Malaysian story before I get into the ground realities of GST in India. I went to Malaysia. Malaysian government called me, the Royal Customs of Malaysia, and I had an opportunity to interact with the person who implemented GST in Malaysia. His name is Dr. Subro. He is the Director General, Dato Indra Subro. His full name is Subramaniam Tolasi, who implemented GST in Malaysia, who is next to the Finance Minister, who implemented Director General of Customs. Their Customs Department only is there, which implemented GST. They had an interaction with him. I asked him, how was your experience in implementing GST in Malaysia? He said, Sathya, in Malaysia, we decided to bring the GST in 2013. And we got the GST in 2015 implemented. And let's compare India. When did we decide? We decided in 1998. And we were not sure before July 1 whether GST will come or not. Let's remember the history. History is very important. When I say talk about history, July 1 history. Even on June 20th, I remember I was sitting on the debates. People asked me, sir, whether GST will come on July 1. They could not believe that the GST is coming to India. And all these traders, business people, and the people who are doing business in cash, people who are doing business in cash, and people who are doing business in cash are not paying taxes are the people who oppose GST. Step 1, people who are doing business in cash. Step 2, people who are doing business in cash not paying tax. There are genuine people whom I know, they do business in cash, pay taxes to the government, they are legally complying, they are not evading tax. And there are people who do business in cash, because if you do in bank, there is no way you can escape. Hope you got the point. Because of TDS compliance is there, they'll deduct the TDS, you get a salary, while you get the salary itself, deduction happens under section 192. And there is a segment where people are doing business in cash, crores of business in cash, and they don't pay tax. When you get in cash, why should you go and disclose? That's the vision they have. And when they don't disclose, they don't pay taxes. This is the segment which oppose the GST. This is the segment which oppose the GST. They were not afraid of the GST law. They were afraid this is the black money eradication law. This is the ground reality. I will tell you, you are all technology people. I never had an opportunity to discuss the technology people. Today I am going to talk about the technology of the GST. If from IIT Madras, if students can join together in hands, tell to the Indian government what kind of reforms they can bring under the GST, understanding the schema of the value chains. That's a great innovation you can do for the country, being a student. I will tell you at the end. Now when I spoke in Malaysia, Subro was asking, I was discussing with Subro, what are the primary steps you took in Malaysia? He said, we introduced price fixation law before the GST onset. Let me remind you, the Malaysian government introduced price fixation law, that is anti-profiteering law, even before GST was introduced in the country. In 2015, they planned to introduce the GST. 2013, they decided to bring the GST. In between, before 18 months, they brought the price fixation law. What is price fixation law? The price fixation law is, for example, if this water bottle is there, the business people should not increase the price post the introduction of GST for a while. Before 18 months, after introduction of the GST, they should not increase the price of this water bottle. Their margin should remain the same. And they should exclude the old tax and levy the new tax. That's all. This was the law which was brought in Malaysia, and they implemented the GST in Malaysia. Why? They can control the inflation only when they keep the price fixation.